Hello everyone, it's Carter from Coaster Explorers, and today I'm going to be talking about the legendary VelociCoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. Okay, before we jump into this review, let me just start off by saying this roller coaster is everything I hoped it would be. It is so fun, so intense, so awesome. It's just a work of art. All right, so what is there to say about this ride that has not already been said? Pretty much nothing. The queue is fantastic. I have never, ever waited in a line for a roller coaster before where I was not bored. I was always bored, like, come on, let's go. I'm ready to get on this ride. Not on this one. There is so much to look at, so much to take in. The outside part of the queue is right next to the Mosasaurus Roll, and we will get to that part of the ride later, because I've got a lot to say about that specific element. But you can hear people screaming when they go through it. You go right underneath the top hat in line. Then when you go inside the building, there's all kinds of raptor statues. There's some really good animatronics. You can even see a part of the launch tunnel. I thought this was a screen when I was in line, and then I realized my second ride that it was actually a window, and you could see the train launching on the second launch, and then raptors were chasing it. That is fantastic. I don't know how they managed to make that happen, like have the raptors chasing the train, but it looked so cool. This ride features double-sided lockers, which is fantastic because you can have your phone in line. Then you just plop it in a locker for free, which, I mean, when I say free, I mean like the price of the lockers is definitely included in admission to the park. Like, this is a very expensive park. But still, you shouldn't have to pay for lockers, and I wish more amusement parks would do what Islands of Adventure does with this ride. Anyway, once you put your phone away, you go up and there's a pre-show. And then the moment of truth arrives, and you walk into the station, and there are these absolutely beautiful Intamin trains with lap bars that you pull down from overhead, and they're so comfortable. I'm pretty sure they're made out of carbon fiber. I might be wrong, but I've heard that from a couple of different sources. And these are my favorite restraints I've ever felt on any roller coaster. It's just so comfortable, and you feel so free at the same time. Perfect. Anyway, you get into your train, you pull down your lap bar over your head, and then you dispatch, and there's some fog that's in the launch tunnel, which is a really cool feature. And you pull up to your first LSM launch. You're sitting there waiting, you hear some dinosaurs snarling and growling, and then you take off, and you have that classic Intamin roar. If you've been on some Intamin Blitz or multi-launch coasters, you've definitely heard this sound before, and it's more prominent on the newer Intamin launch coasters. Like, if you think of Cheetah Hunt or Maverick, it has a different sound. But the newer age ones like Pantheon, VelociCoaster, Terran, coasters like that, there's a very distinct roar sound to the LSMs that's different than most LSM launch coasters. And I love that sound. It just adds to the drama. After this launch, you will go into a very odd-shaped Immelman. It's almost, I like to think of this as like a incline loop where it's like sort of off-centered. Really cool. If you're in the front, you'll get some nice hang time going through it. And if you're in the back, you get absolutely catapulted out of your seat coming out of it. It's ridiculous. I got 2 rides on this ride, one in the front and one in the back. And both rides could not be more different in the way it felt. After that Immelman, there is just rock work everywhere that you are just dodging. It increases your sensation of speed. There's even little statue raptors. I say little, but really they're big. They just look little because you're on a roller coaster. But they are so close to you, it almost feels like you can touch them. And you're just weaving in and out of rock work. It is fantastic. And it looks exactly like the raptor paddock from the movies. There is a dive loop in there also. And once again, the dive loop is very bizarre. It almost feels like it's off-centered again, like I mentioned on the Immelman. And it's definitely an inversion. Like, you definitely feel like you're upside down, but if you're looking at these inversions from off-ride, it almost doesn't look like an inversion just by the way it's profiled. After you've woven in and out of the trenches and the raptor paddock, this is when the ride really shines. You hit your second launch, and once again, you have that fantastic Intamin roar. This time it's even louder. And you shoot up into this massive top hat. If you're in the front, you get ejected on your way up. And if you're in the back, you get just thrown out of your seat down this. The back is definitely better for the top hat. After the top hat, you're right next to the pathways, and you go into this zero-G stall. And this is one of my favorite stalls I've ever been on. I've heard some enthusiasts not like this stall as much as others, but I'm going to have to disagree. This one has a very prominent snap in and snap out when you're in it. After the stall, you go into this giant helix over the water, but it doesn't feel like a helix. You're just banked to the right. And then you hit one spot where the train just throws you to the left and then throws you back to the right. I love that sensation. All right, and this moment that I'm about to talk about is the legendary Mosasaurus Roll. My personal favorite inversion I have ever experienced on any roller coaster. It is berserk. I remember when this roller coaster first came out and I was watching reviews and everybody was just raving about the Mosasaurus Roll. Nobody could stop talking about it. And when I watched POVs, I was like, yeah, that's cool. It's a heartline roll over the water, but I don't really understand why people are going so crazy. Like, I love heartline rolls, don't get me wrong, but it didn't look that crazy to me. Well, then I rode it and I understood immediately what people were talking about. You start rotating to your left, and then there's like this kink. I like to think of it like a Skyrush kink. If you've ridden Skyrush, you just you start falling on the drop, and then you get ejected like halfway down. That is very similar to this. As soon as you're upside down, you just get thrown out of your seat through the rest of the inversion. I don't understand how to explain it, but I thought I was going in the water. I thought I was a goner. That should not be allowed at that park. It's a family park, but it's also like a thrilling family park. That element in particular is ridiculous. It is absolutely terrifying, and I love it. It's just as good in the front as it is in the back. Then you have this real quick S-turn, and it reminded me a lot of like the Maverick turns, but a little bit less intense. You get a little bit of airtime on these as well. And then you end the ride with a bang just like that. I could not be more impressed with this roller coaster, guys. You have got to go out and experience this thing if you've not ridden it before. I need to get back out there just to ride it again. I only got 2 rides, one on the front and one on the back. And all that I want to do is go back and ride VelociCoaster. I wish the line wasn't so long. I absolutely loved it. There's not enough I can say about this roller coaster. You just have to go experience it. Now, there is one last thing that I want to touch on before the end of this review, and that is the smoothness of this roller coaster. I was going in expecting this to be a glass smooth roller coaster, and to my surprise, it actually was not. When I rode in the front, it could not have been smoother. It was as smooth as could be. Felt like butter. But when I rode in the very back row, and this roller coaster is not rough. Let me make that as clear as possible. It is not a rough ride at all. However, there is a very noticeable shuffle when you're in the very back. I don't know if that's the case for the other rows, because I only rode the front row and the back. But when I was in the back, it was, especially the first half, it was a little bit rattly. Maybe it's because I was sitting in the second row of a car. Maybe those seats in particular are rougher. I don't know, but that really didn't take away from the ride experience. It was just something that I was surprised to see. And what am I going to give this coaster for a score? Well, I don't think this is going to come as a surprise to any of you. This is getting an absolute 10 out of 10. This is my all-time favorite roller coaster that is operational. My favorite ever is Dragster, but that's defunct. So, in terms of operational roller coasters, this is the best roller coaster out there in my opinion. It is perfect. It is flawless. The pacing is amazing. The theming is amazing. The restraints are amazing. The layout is fantastic. And the layout builds on itself. And that's what I like about it so much. I wish I got to ride it more than I did, but the line was atrocious. Next time I go, I honestly might consider investing in some fast passes because those lines were terrible. And I just wanted to ride this over and over, and I couldn't do that. So if you haven't been on this before, you have to get out there and ride it. I know it's expensive, but it is worth every penny out there. It is so good. And if you have ridden it, I'd like to hear what you think about it. Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like, maybe consider subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.